All right, thanks for being here. The breaking news this morning, Tim Walz, who is the governor of Minnesota, is the choice for Vice President Harris. He will be the running mate, so the ticket will be Harris. Walz will be the ticket. Not a lot of people in Arizona, I don't know where else in the country, know a whole lot about him. But joining us, Democratic strategist from Lumen Strategies, is Stacy Pearson. Stacy, thanks for doing this again.
Oh, of course. Happy to be here.
Your initial reaction when were you surprised by this choice? Is this a good choice in your mind? What was your initial reaction when you heard the choice?
Oh, I was excited about the choice, and I'm not surprised. The entire concept of Midwestern values and a school teacher turned vice president and, just a hometown, small town, completely unassuming human is exactly what the Harris campaign needed. And so I think it's an extraordinary choice, and I am excited to watch this unfold.
How does he appeal to independent voters? I don't mean will he, but how does he do it? How does he accomplish that? Because already I'm looking at my side of the aisle. They're talking extremists, some of the policies on feminine products in boys' bathrooms, that's already coming out there. How does he offset that? What does he do to appeal to the independent voters?
So it's so funny because the quote in Arizona is "Don't California my Arizona," right? In Arizona, it's going to be perfectly okay to Minnesota our Arizona. It's his policies that brought down the cost of college tuition, that brought down the cost of daycare, that brought down the cost of healthcare, that expanded the child tax credit. Those kinds of policies are exactly what independents are looking for. They really want to stay above the fray and the name calling and the nonsense and get back to kitchen table issues. And there's nothing more kitchen table than the cost of childcare right now in the U.S.
So when you look at this, are there any challenges other than a lot? And I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I don't really know anything about him. Is that the biggest challenge of the campaign? Is this introduction between now and the end of their convention? Or what are the challenges that he brings?
Oh, I think that is the challenge. The anonymity is the challenge. And it's going to be how quickly he can introduce himself to the country before the Republicans get the jump. And I thought it was funny watching the news this morning. The word dangerous kept being used to describe him, and I can't think of anything that he looks less like. I mean, in the man versus bear, what would a woman rather run into in the forest? He's a guy that you would go, okay, well, that guy's fine. Like he doesn't look dangerous. He doesn't look extremist. He doesn't have extremist positions. Even his ability to defend the positions that he's taken, like providing universal lunches to kids. Even that comes across as very genuine, homespun. I'm trying to take care of my people and feed all the kids.
Stacy Pearson is joining us. She's with Lumen Strategies. She's a Democratic strategist here in the state of Arizona. So then when you look now at the head-to-head matchup in a vice presidential debate, you've got two Midwestern guys. You've got J.D. Vance talking about his values, single mom, raised by his grandmother, pretty transparent. Is this kind of that battle for that Midwestern values vote between the two of them?
I think so. And I think the defining characteristic is going to be optimism versus anger. And Mike, you and I have talked about this. I think the Republican Party is going to have to get away from calling the United States names writ large, calling us a third world country, calling us a joke, calling us, the embarrassment of the world stage. The Republicans are going to have to get away from that because it's not what your average voter in America believes is true about our own neighborhoods, about our own blocks, about our own elementary schools. They're far more optimistic. And Walz gives me the vibe that he would ground or bench one of his football players if they talked about the United States the way the Republican Party is right now.
When you look at the challenge that the vice president has when it comes to the border issues with her time as vice president, Mark Kelly seemed to be someone that could really help her in border states and with border, people considering that a major issue. Is that now something they're giving up on? How do they address this without someone like Mark Kelly? Obviously, Governor Walz is not a southern border state governor. So what does he bring in that regard? Or is that not something he needs to do?
So I personally am relieved that Mark Kelly is staying in Arizona to help pass meaningful legislation to help regulate the border and stop the flow of undocumented immigration. Me personally, I'm very excited that we're not going to have that seat up in play in 2 years. Arizona voted for Mark Kelly because of his resume and because of his strength on the border and for a variety of other reasons. And certainly, I think we're lucky to keep him. But the Democratic Party cannot get away from border security. It is extraordinarily important for us to hire more Border Patrol officers, to get better technology, to provide faster processing, to do better background checks. I mean, all of these things will not go away just because we've selected somebody from a northern state.
So, would you, as a strategist, if you were advising the Harris campaign, would you have them talk about border issues and address what she would do differently than what maybe President Biden did, or would you have them stay away from the issue? What direction would you go if you were advising?
So I would advise them to take Senator Sinema's package, border package, and pass it in the House. And I think what Walz brings to the table in terms of his bipartisanship and his service in the U.S. House of Representatives is going to help get that done. I mean, the package that Senator Sinema, the bipartisan package that she put together, really needs to be passed, and it needs to be passed quickly.
When you look at the debates coming forward, do you think there will be a presidential debate? I guess Trump has agreed to one with Fox News. Harris has yet to say yes to that. Do you think we're going to see debates, or more than one debate between the two presidential candidates? And are you looking forward to the vice presidential debate?
Oh, I'm looking forward to both. Look, ballots drop in Arizona in about 60 days, in less than 60 days, actually. So Americans are consuming this political information as fast as they can get it. The Democrats going into this election cycle had two opponents, one being Donald Trump, the other being apathy. And the apathy problem's been solved. So now I really do want to see these folks get into the nitty-gritty of policy.
When you look, last question is about the economy. We saw yesterday, shaky day on Wall Street, world economy, big sell-off. It seems like there's some recovery today. Is that a concern? Is that a concern for the Harris campaign going forward? If people are getting more concerned about the possibility of a recession, and if they are concerned, how does she address it?
Oh, I think people are hypersensitive, appropriately hypersensitive to the economic issues. And so the way you counterbalance that, if you can't control whether or not crypto falls, what you can control is whether or not you provide assistance for childcare, or you expand the child tax credit, or you bring down the cost of prescription drugs or gasoline, or whatever these daily items are. I mean, that ultimately is going to be the counterbalance when some of these worldwide factors are much more difficult to move and much more difficult to control.
Stacey, I really enjoy talking with you. You have the insight. Obviously, I don't have. I appreciate the time, and I'm sure we're going to be talking again between now and November.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right. That is Stacy Pearson joining us for a few moments.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.